Let's join Heather and our school psychologist and board certified behavior analyst, Chris Zielinski, as they talk about this week's high leverage practice.
Welcome to Little Bits of TLC, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of education. Join our host, Heather Volchko, as this season we focus on high leverage practices, HLPs. Each episode will examine a different HLP, essential strategies designed to enhance teaching and improve outcomes across various educational settings. These practices focus on collaboration, assessment, social, emotional, behavioral support, and instruction, benefiting all K-12 students. I hope you're ready to be both challenged and inspired, because this season is all about mastering the HLPs. This is Little Bits of TLC. Looking to become an RBT in a school setting? Or just want training that actually fits the work you do every day? Our school-based RBT 40-hour training was built just for that. This course meets the 2026 training requirements and was created by real school-based specialists who know what the job actually looks like. It's engaging, up-to-date, and grounded in the classroom, not a clinic. With cross-training connections for para-educators and study tools to help you pass your exam with confidence, this training goes way beyond checking a box. Led by Heather Volchko, Candace McCoy, and Manny Wasius, and featuring Dr. Richard Van Acker, it's the first course of its kind that we know of, and we're proud of that. Head to university.thresholdlearning.org to enroll and get started. Let us teach you the basics, get you thriving, and move you onward through your journey to becoming an RBT today.
Teachers help students to develop important concepts and skills that provide the foundation for more complex learning. Teachers sequence lessons that build on each other and make connections explicit in both planning and delivery. They activate students' prior knowledge and show how each lesson fits with previous ones. Planning involves careful consideration of learning goals, what is involved in reaching the goals, and allocating time accordingly. Ongoing changes like pacing and examples occur throughout the sequence based on student performance.
This week, we're talking about high leverage practice number 12, systematically designing instruction toward a specific learning goal. And Chris, I'm excited to hear you talk about this one because you've hit it not just from the IEP and looking at the individual specific needs that is that kid's learning goal, but you've also developed programs that across their day, their time, their activities, it's hitting a ton of learning goals programmatically. So for you and your practice, what does this look like?
You have to go into this with some level of intentionality, right? You just can't randomly start slapping things together. So program versus individual, it doesn't matter what you're doing in relation to that. You have to be intentional in your format, right? If you're looking at it from a programmatic perspective, you know that your program, it should not be a catch-all. There should be some reasonable clustering or grouping of students there into your program. And when you have that, you're going to find those commonalities, those features, those needs. Like, for example, if I'm working with, self-contained programming that is working with individuals that, ASD, maybe communication in nature, I'm going to be really very specific on the programmatic side. One of the collective things we're going to be looking at is communication. We're going to infuse that into that type of programming. And then we're going to set up our goals. We're going to set up what we're going to do. How are we going to teach it? What tools can we use? That can come as part of that process, but you have to go in with some intentionality, right? You're going to have programs that are going to look at life skills. You're going to look at transition programs, right? You really have to be intentional in how you're going at it. You can't just grab a singular curriculum or singular tool and say, this is going to fix everything. Because let me tell you, if I had that one tool and I copywrote it, I'd be a millionaire, billionaire, maybe, it just doesn't exist. As much as people want you to believe that it does, the reality is it isn't. And then at the individual, that more micro level, looking at the individual learner, it's the same thing. Whether you're doing groupings of students, whether you're looking at establishing specific goals and for an individual, right? You still have to be intentional. You have to think about it. And when I go at it, whether it's programmatic or whether it's person, I always think of it, it's like backwards engineering, right? And when you think of backwards engineering, you people go into a scenario oftentimes and they know what they want to accomplish, right? And you have to really think about it like a roadmap. And I've always said it. I can put a map down in front of somebody and say, "Hey, I need to go here." That's great. But if you don't know where you're at in that moment, turning left, turning right, going straight, half a mile block, this off ramp, that off ramp, this street. It means nothing. So you have to have the big picture. You start with that backwards engineering. You look at those specific goals, whether it's programmatic goals, like what are we looking through our mission, our vision, right, of that program? Or are we looking at that specific learner? What are we looking to accomplish? And even if you boil it down even further, what are we looking to accomplish with this student this year on this IEP? And so there's a lot of sequencing that goes into that, and you have to think about it, right? You have to be very intentional. And oftentimes I see people that they'll pull a curriculum and they'll say, this is what we're going to use. We're using this and it's going to be the approach. Well, if you really break that curriculum down and you start looking at it, the sequence it takes might not necessarily be the best. Or even if you look at a state that has state learning standards, you might find that some of those align very well with state learning standards. And some of the materials might not even align to state learning standards, or even more challenging is that there are notable gaps, which is almost invariably what you find. And so, if you're looking at it from an individual perspective or a student perspective or a program perspective, the first suggestion I'd give you is be intentional. Be intentional and strategic. Second thing I would tell you is you know where you want to go. You have an idea, and that might change over time. Awesome. Be flexible, but think about it from a backward planning perspective, and then from there you start digging into some of that sequences. And so programs can be its own thing. They can. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, individual learners because I feel when I'm working with a lot of teachers, they struggle heavily with individual learners. They say, well, I've got this student that's so different than this student. And I'm really trying to establish this goal with this student. And I'm trying to establish, and you've got 50 million things, and you might be able to sit down and look at it and say, okay, if you look at your students and you look at what you're looking to accomplish, you're looking to accomplish similar things with maybe three of them. And you might already have some tools at your disposal that are going to benefit you, but you only look at it when you look at those goals, right? And from those goals, you really want to make sure that they are sequencing with those lessons. What is the objective of this? Are we moving towards that goal? Or how is this teaching us either an underlying a concept, a skill, a foundational skill? How are we going to be able to pivot and leverage this as we go to a bigger outcome, bigger goal? I feel like I'm talking a lot right now, but
No, it's okay. I asked you a really big question because when you're looking at that instruction, even programs are made up of individuals. And
right.
so trying to figure out, okay, am I only focusing on the individual? Am I only focusing on the program? If I'm building a program, then what happens if my individuals change? Then does my program need to change? Right? You really cannot separate, in my opinion. You can't focus on one or the others. It is an absolute both and I completely agree with you with the backwards planning and like where are you headed? Now let's back that up in through the grade levels and let's back that up through, that individual. What is their long-term outcome that they're trying to achieve and are we backwards mapping all of those skills that are going to be needed so that they can, actually get there. And I also really appreciate that you're calling out, there is no one trick wonder. There is no, as many publishers would want you to believe that they are the answer to whatever, instructional challenge you may be experiencing. There is no one quick solution. It's knowing your people, know your individuals, know where they're going, know where you fit on that map of getting them there. And then that's the answer for what resources and materials you need because now your instruction is actually systematically fitted to who you have and what they need.
You're right. It's aligned. I've always said it. We are in the human industry, right? We are. And it does me no good to teach you what I think is great. It does you all the good for me to teach you the things that you need to learn given where you're at and where you're looking to go. The same thing with the program, right? And I see that sometimes there's shifts, there's challenges on both sides. People say, okay, we've got this program, it's established, we've got the ideals of what we're doing, we've got a mission, we've got our vision, we're all moving towards these things. And how do I do it? Right. And I'll use the example that I brought up before self contained programming, right? People often look at the curriculum to solve everything for them, right? If I just use this, it's going to get me where I need to go. And like we established before, right? That's can't be further from the truth. The reality of it is you need to have some other helpful tools, right? You might be utilizing things that are not part of that curriculum. You might be making your own graphic organizers, or you might be concept mapping and trying to draw those connections, right? Using a graphic organizer for a kid, if they're visually oriented, and mapping out those concepts of how they're actually connected. So I can tell you what one thing that I have learned greatly is You can teach somebody a skill, but if they don't understand or see how that skill connects to other skills as a pivotal skill, or it's connected to the greater necessity of things as we're going on a progression, you can see that there is less level of investment in it, right? You might look at advancement organizers. How are we going to teach the progression of this skill set, right? And each of those we have to set goals for our system, goals for our student, goals for even our individual objectives, right? You see that students will have an IEP. You can't write all the goals in the world, but what you can do is you can take the ones that are the most important given where the student is at. It's the same thing for your program. You can establish a million goals for a program, but you have to start with the most important. And biting off the things that you can chew and making sure you're not biting so much off that you end up choking on it and burning yourself out, you have to be very specific and strategic.
Well, so walk me through that. I mean,
Yeah.
when we're talking about low incidence populations, there's a lot. There are a lot of different things. I mean, my background more with the EBD crew, we're juggling the intervention as well as the grade level instruction, as well
Mhm.
as the social, emotional, behavioral, mental health, right? But you're juggling a ton of these things in the low incidence population if you're looking at workplace and independent living and all of these
Right.
outcomes. So, how am I supposed to
Yeah.
prioritize? Okay, I might have resources for this, but I see a student need in that, or I've got some family who's advocating for this or
Yeah.
an outside service provider who says I'm not doing enough of that, right? Like, how do I actually know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
Mhm. So, a couple questions mixed in there, but I'll start with your first one, right? Your third word in there is actually what I would point out. You said, "How do I?" The reality of it is, anytime you're working to establish all of those, it cannot be an I. It cannot be an I. And I see teachers put it solely on their shoulders, you know, and they want their students to succeed so vehemently. They want their program to be so effective that the district puts the program on its shoulders or the teachers put their students on their shoulders. The reality of it is that teacher has a team around them, just like that program has a district around it. And just like that district has a community around it. And you can keep making those circles bigger and bigger. But the reality of it is, it sounds cheesy, man. Team, right? Together, everyone achieves more. And it is the way you have to go. When I would be working with teachers and they would be really struggling, whether it's program development, a lot of times people get burned out. They feel like they're burning the candle at both ends with a blowtorch, and it is slowly accelerating, and then it's off to this fast burn run, and then all of a sudden they're spent. They have nothing left to give. And I've seen one of the common denominators that comes up over and over is how much we put on our individual shoulders. So what I would take you back is to that question, how do I know? I would say, well, you should be a part of it, but you shouldn't be all of it. You have a team. If you have a child in a self-contained setting, I'm sure that there is a social worker and a speech pathologist and an occupational therapist, right? You can't be an expert in everything, but you can work well with others and they bring their lens in. And collectively, when we all take a bite, we can go through a big meal. That would be the first thing I'm going to tell you. Whether it's a student, whether it's a program, you have to look at those concentric rings around you, the things that you're touching. From there, then you're going to collaborate. 90% of the work for success comes by way of others for a student. Whether that other fill in the void, it's the parent, it's the teams working with them, it's the paras, it's the teacher, it's all of those people around. Even the principal has skin in that game. They're all there, right? So it should never be an I. That's number one. And number two, if you ever find yourself bearing the burden of all of it, then it's time to go out and recruit those people that do have skin in the game to it. Same thing when you're looking at programs, right? You try and establish a program. One of the things that I see is programs can be designed really well, and districts have ample resources. Districts have ample resources, right? And they run that out as if they are the only entity in the universe. But I can tell you this, your transition program will only be strengthened if you are working and lobbying and identifying out in the community those things that you yourself will not be able to teach in your own walls. It's the same thing when you have a self contained program. Your goal is to work yourself out of a job, right? And I've asked many, many, many special education self contained teachers, how are you interfacing with general education teachers? And sometimes I get the very blunt truth, I don't. Great. Awesome. How can we do this? Because inclusion's a thing, right? And opportunities are a thing. And if we really want to work ourselves out of that job, then we want to find success in a variety of environments, not just one. And so I go back to we were talking about goals, right? You have to have boots on the ground. You've got to have that observational piece. You have to look at those sequences that you're looking. You have to have some of those tools. You have to look at what would be beneficial given the strengths and the yet to be established skills in this child. And how can I leverage those strengths to bootstrap some of those things that have yet to be established? How can I leverage the strengths of this program and others around us to pull that program together to things that I myself can't do? But you look at the goals, you look at your sequencing, you reverse engineer it, and you go to a clear path. And here's the funny part, whether it's working with a student, whether it's working with a program, whether it's a district or whatever you're doing, I love that aha moment where people realize number one, four is better than two, and two is better than you, right? And we've been working this direction. We're either further down the field than we thought, or we need to course correct. But now they have all these tools for course correction, right? And that's not even talking about the pacing. It's not talking about specific things into individual students' perspectives, but it's purposeful in teaching, purposeful in setup and design, and then purposeful with our tools. A teacher will never be able to establish every single tool. They're never going to have all the tools in the tool belt. But what I would encourage every educator to do is to identify 3 or 4 good tools and learn how to adapt them for a variety of individuals. It may or may not work, but it's like texting and driving. When you have too many choices, right? It allows you to be kind of crummy at 2 different things at the same time. And so narrowing that down and getting that, and then slowly developing yourself as a lifelong learner is another piece that's really important. We want to be explicit, make those connections, connections between our lessons, connections between our program and the community. We want to check that progress with our students and be willing to be flexible and adapt.
Thank you for basically shouting from the rooftops how important that, like, no one person can do all of this. And yes, like, that is something that in your practice and my practice, we are constantly telling people, like, okay, where's your sweet spot? Great, let's do that. Now, what are those things you're gonna have to learn along the way? Cool, we can learn those too. But you don't have to learn everything. You don't have to do everything. You got to know your people and have those connections. And if that's within your classroom, within your building, within your district, within your community, and quite honestly, then there's a lot of opportunities in just national networking with
Mhm.
different resource sharing and organizations. There's all kinds of people, organizations, resources out there that so often someone will see a high leverage practice like this that says instruction. Oh, well, that's teaching. Teachers teach. And
Yeah,
then this
right. So does
entire
so does the
topic,
world.
right? But then
Yeah,
this whole
yeah.
topic does sit on the shoulders of the teacher. And then it's like, well, I'm a specialist. I don't do that. That's teaching. That's a teacher's
Mhm.
job. Right. And so you get this division sometimes that can happen. And I've walked teams through that. But that's why I just like go for it. Soapbox, right? Because what you're saying is so true that no one person, regardless of title, will ever accomplish all of the things that it
Right,
takes to truly provide systematically designed instruction that's going to hit the individual specific learning goal and the learning goals of that program in which the
right.
individual is placed. So, no, no apologies necessary. That is amazing.
Yeah. And the other thing I would tell people is not to give up. What you come out with at the end of a year with a student might not be what you were anticipating. It might be more, might be not as much, but you came out better than what you did. Same thing with your programs. If you're going to look at your program, measure that progress, but recognize that progress is relative, right? And I know that people will say, "Oh, well, it's different with an IEP because it's a contractual obligation that you're going to get to a certain point with a student in a skill set in a certain time in a timely fashion, be systematic and measurable, attainable, blah, blah, blah." I can give all the other fun things, but the reality of it is when you're working in that space, whether it's student specific, whether it's program development, there are only 3 ways it's going to go. I'm going to be very honest with you. You can be the force pushing as hard as you can, head down, shoving that person forward to make progress, that program to make progress, that district to be making those connections and expanding. You can be shoving as hard as you want. You can be in front of them. You can tie a rope around it. You can pull it along, drag it. You're going to get to this point come heck or high water, right? Try not to cuss there, but we're going to get there and I'll drag you kicking and screaming if I have to. Or you can walk alongside that person, that program, that district. And when you have those goals, it is okay that sometimes we have to revise it. Sometimes we have to course correct. Sometimes we have to change. And sometimes we're just going so darn fast. We're moving that marker as we're going, right? And you feel like you're building the plane while you're flying it, but you got to know your people. You have to know your students. And I know that this is going to sound crazy, but you also have to know and recognize what burnout starts to look like. Because if you find yourself seeing those early signs, a high probability that whatever sphere you're working in, you are the one pushing, you are the one pulling. And over time, you might be the person that gets burned out as well. And in today's day and age, I think we need as many people as we can get because they're motivated. They want to do right. It's never a profession we're going to get rich in, but we'll be rich in love and heart.
Thank you so much for just wearing your passion on your sleeve and championing everyone who is still sitting in education. It is hard right now. There's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of uncertainty around just education and especially individuals who struggle in their learning. So thank you for reminding them, right? Like you need to care for yourself so that you can care for your students. And you cannot do any of that by yourself. You yourself need community. You need people around you who can help support the student, right? It's all of these things, which I just love that we start the conversation talking about systematically designing instruction and then we start hitting burnout and team lead and like all these different moving pieces because it's really it is that complex, it is that
Mhm.
heavy, that's just the real story around. It's not just like, well, here's how you follow your scope and sequence and
Right.
pull your curriculum, and it's really just so much more than that. So thank you for making sure that we covered that this week. But yes, thank you so much for taking your
Yeah.
time and having this conversation with me. I really thank you for it.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Working with students who need long term individualized support? Project Base is a 4-strand project designed for educators in self contained classrooms serving students with low incident needs. You'll get step by step guidance on building a program that focuses on communication, daily routines, and real world skill building. From setting up the classroom environment to designing personalized plans, this course helps you create a space where your students can grow and succeed in school and into adulthood. Led by Chris Zielinski and Carly Dietz, Project Base offers practical strategies, case studies, and planning tools to help you confidently support your students every step of the way. If you're ready to strengthen your program and build something that lasts, this project is your next step. If you're supporting emotional or behavioral needs in general ed or resource classrooms, Project Thrive helps you keep learning on track. And if you're in a therapeutic or alternative setting, building something from the ground up, Project Onward offers the structure and tools to do it well. Head to university.thresholdlearning.org to meet your team and begin building your home base today.
Students with disabilities need instruction that is more systematically designed compared to their typically developing peers. Research has identified key elements of effective systematic instruction that should be integrated into lessons and units. Among these, three core components stand out: having clear instructional goals, sequencing knowledge and skills logically, and teaching students how to organize content. Effective instruction starts with clear, attainable learning goals stated in specific, measurable terms. Teachers carefully select and sequence content to build on what students already know. This means teaching simpler skills before more complex ones, introducing frequently used information before less common material, and ensuring that prerequisites are mastered before moving to advanced concepts. Teachers also focus on teaching clear, unambiguous information before more complex material and separating content and skills that are similar in form or function to prevent confusion. Additionally, teachers make explicit connections between content and skills across lessons to help students link prior knowledge with new information. This approach allows students to see relationships between facts, concepts, and principles, which aids in retention and deeper understanding. By systematically designing instruction with these principles, teachers can better support students in achieving their learning goals and facilitate meaningful application of knowledge. Systematic design of instruction is a crucial, high leverage practice that guides educators in tailoring their approach to meet the needs of students with disabilities effectively. This method emphasizes the importance of structuring, ordering, and specifying instruction in a way that aligns with each student's unique requirements. For students with disabilities, this precise approach can significantly enhance their learning outcomes. Before diving into systematic instruction, effective educators collaborate closely with colleagues and families, as highlighted in high leverage practices 1 and 3. They also rely on data driven decision making, guided by HLPs 2, 4, and 6, to ensure that instruction is responsive and impactful. The core elements of this systematic design are intricately linked with other HLPs, such as HLP 16, which underscores the use of explicit instruction, and HLP 11, focusing on identifying and prioritizing both long and short term learning goals. By integrating these practices, educators can craft well instructed and adaptive learning experiences that are both meaningful and accessible for their students. Designing instruction that effectively guides students toward their learning goals involves a nuanced approach that integrates clarity, structure, and adaptability. Teachers who excel in this area are adept at translating broad, long term objectives into specific, actionable lesson targets that are clear, measurable, and aligned with students' needs. Using a structured framework like the ACCOMPLISH model, which stands for antecedent condition, conspicuous behavior, clear criteria, observable, measurable, positive, linked to the general curriculum, individualized, socially valid, and high reaching, can significantly enhance this process. This model encourages teachers to set goals that are specific and measurable, clearly defining what students should do to demonstrate their learning and how it will be assessed. For instance, instead of just stating that students should improve their reading skills, a goal might be to read a certain number of words per minute with a specified accuracy rate and answer a set percentage of comprehension questions correctly. This level of detail ensures that both students and teachers understand exactly what is expected and how progress will be measured. Moreover, instruction should be strategically sequenced. This means introducing fundamental concepts and skills before moving on to more complex ones, teaching similar skills separately before requiring students to distinguish between them, and focusing on commonly encountered content before less frequent material. By systematically structuring lessons to build from simple to complex, teachers help students make meaningful connections between new information and what they already know. Effective teachers also incorporate principles of explicit instruction. They connect new content to overarching big ideas, use clear and direct strategies to reinforce these connections, and provide scaffolding support through a model, lead, test approach. They engage students' prior knowledge through guided discussions, integrate new content with existing knowledge to foster higher order thinking, and use judicious review to reinforce and build upon previously learned material. Tools like graphic organizers can further aid in organizing and visualizing content, helping students manage and integrate new information. Additionally, ongoing data collection allows teachers to monitor progress and make necessary adjustments to instruction, ensuring that teaching strategies remain responsive to student needs and yield the best possible outcomes. In essence, systematically designing instruction requires a blend of strategic planning, clear goal setting, and responsive teaching practices. This approach not only facilitates students' achievements of learning goals, but also fosters a dynamic and engaging learning environment. Supporting teachers in systematically designing effective instruction involves a multifaceted approach from school leaders. First and foremost, it's crucial to ensure that educators have a well rounded set of instructional strategies, including explicit teaching methods. This foundational knowledge enables teachers to craft lessons that are both structured and responsive to student needs. Leaders should assess whether educators possess the necessary skills and strategies to design effective instruction. Based on this assessment, providing targeted professional development and coaching is key. This support can focus on areas such as developing high quality learning targets using the ACCOMPLISH method. This method serves as a practical guide for setting clear, measurable goals that align with standards and individual education plans, or IEPs. Moreover, it's important for school leaders to review these goals to ensure they meet high standards for quality and relevance. This involves checking that goals are specific, actionable, and appropriately challenging. Feedback on the quality and specificity of these goals helps teachers refine their objectives and improve their effectiveness. Additionally, a robust plan for evaluating student progress is essential. Leaders should support teachers in establishing and managing effective data collection practices. This ensures that teachers can monitor student progress accurately and make informed decisions to adjust instruction as needed. By focusing on these areas, school leaders can significantly enhance the ability of educators to systematically design instruction that meets diverse student needs and promotes academic success. Despite substantial research on learning goals, lesson sequencing, and visual content displays, few studies have explored these practices in isolation. This makes it challenging to gauge the specific impact of each element on overall intervention effectiveness. What we know is that these practices are seldom applied individually. They are typically integrated into well-designed lessons and instructional units. However, even with meticulously crafted lessons, achieving satisfactory outcomes for every student isn't guaranteed. Therefore, ongoing monitoring of student progress is crucial. If students aren't progressing as expected, it's important to scrutinize the lesson goals, sequencing, and clarity of connections between concepts. These factors could be the root causes of inadequate progress, highlighting the need for systematic component analysis to refine our understanding of these instructional practices. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Join us next week when Heather sits down with special education teacher and aspiring BCBA, Cass O'Hara, from our district partner, the Academies of South Bend, to talk about our next high leverage practice.
Hey, before you jump back into your busy life, consider dropping a like and follow @ThresholdLearningTLC on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you like our show, share the podcast with your colleagues. A personal recommendation is by far the best way to promote the podcast. Let them know that they can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that they catch their podcast. Just be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. You can email us at info@thresholdlearning.org. We always enjoy connecting with fellow educators and champions for educational justice. You can find everything you're looking for at thresholdlearning.org. See you there. Attention educators pursuing behavior analysis certification and universities preparing them for success. Supervision with TLC offers 100% remote fieldwork supervision designed specifically for school-based professionals. Educators can earn their hours right in their schools without leaving their classroom, all while being supported by experienced BCBAs who understand the realities of education. With month-to-month scheduling, affordable rates, and both live video and asynchronous chat, our fieldwork supervision model is designed to fit into your life, not the other way around. We also invite universities to enhance their graduate programs in partnership with our team of practicing school-based BCBAs. Our fieldwork supervision model keeps students on track for certification by helping them connect their practice to all exam domains so that they can confidently pass the exam. Explore more at university.thresholdlearning.org/supervision or email supervision@thresholdlearning.org to connect. Supervision with TLC, where educators grow into behavior analysts.